Hello everyone, my name is Grzegorz Roguszczak and we are joined here today by Thiago Klafke. Correct me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly.
That's perfect.
Okay, great. Of Blizzard Entertainment. And just let's jump right in. How are you doing in this coronavirus pandemic time?
Pretty good, actually. I actually quite enjoy working from home. It feels like back in the days when I started, making maps at home. We would always communicate through IRC and chat and work at night. So it feels it doesn't feel too bad. And we can still go out for walks, and the weather is really nice outside. And we went to the beach yesterday, and so far it's all good. So let's hope it stays that way. How about you guys?
I guess we're doing pretty much similarly. I heard that programmers and artists are pretty much in paradise right now, or introverts all over the world are in a very comfortable position. But you started talking about your beginnings. So I suppose that's part of what we're here for. So I might ask you a few questions about that. So, because you are an environment artist at Blizzard, for those that do not know. And what inspired you to go into game development, to be an artist? So was it a single impulse, or you always?
I don't know. Like when I was a kid, I loved to draw and play video games.
That's understandable.
And and I love to use computers too. And I really wanted to make games. Like when I was a kid, I was really curious about how you make games, but I had no idea how do you even get started. This was Brazil in the 90s, and for me, making a game and putting a cartridge, it was like black magic. How does this? I didn't even know you could use a computer to make that. So I never really thought that was doable. But then, if you guys remember Counter-Strike back in the day?
Oh, yes.
So it was huge, right? Everywhere, everyone was playing.
There were not even that much back in the day. It was still popular 2 years ago.
Oh, right now they just hit the most active players 2 weeks ago ever.
Yeah, I suppose it's good circumstances for hitting those.
Yeah, for sure. And so back in the time, there were so many cyber cafes that opened up because of this game in Brazil. They were everywhere. Everyone was playing this game, and there was some maps that were set in Brazil.
Wow!
A favela map and São Paulo map, and I was just thinking to myself, someone made this. If someone made this
in front of a computer,
Sorry, say it again.
Someone sat in front of a computer and made it.
If someone else made it, I can make it too. And one day I was playing one of these maps, and I saw a banner inside the map with the credits for the guy who made the map, and he had a link to his website. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna check this out. So when I go to his website, he was cool enough to write a little free book on how to get started with making maps.
Oh, and the book is still around, or?
Yeah, it's it's in Portuguese, but it was for Counter-Strike. It was very simple. It was how to make a simple room with a skybox, So you know how to place walls, and you learn how to place floors and the sky and the lights, and how to make a door, those kind of basic stuff. And from there, I fell in love. I was fascinated. I was I couldn't believe I had this power to create worlds and spaces that other people could play. It just felt very empowering, and I never felt that feeling before.
So Counter-Strike was this first inspiration.
Yeah.
And it's fitting that you'd end up doing shooters later too.
Yeah.
So, you wanted to say something?
No, go ahead.
So probably people are wondering, because it's a pretty hot topic, on whether having an art degree is in any way relevant to get any sort of career in video game art or anything. So what did you study? Did you study art at any point? Or
so it really depends on how you actually use the degree. You know, like when you go to school, like if you really put the effort and you do all the assignments like as well as you can, and you go the extra mile to find outside information, to watch like tutorials at home and that stuff, then it's really powerful. Like I see people who they go to, like when they go to game art school, and they get like crazy good like in 2 or 3 years, you know. And for me it took like much longer, like to get at a place where I could work professionally. So but I don't have a degree. I studied industrial design for 1.5 years, but then I got my first job at Ubisoft, and then I had to move to another city, and I was like, you know, I probably don't need that anymore.
Yeah, first job at Ubisoft is still pretty good.
Yeah, and it was like a really cool time because they opened this studio in Brazil in 2008, and I remember I was working at a print shop, you know, making like business cards and stuff. Designing, and I saw this. Right? Sorry, say it again.
Designing them.
Yeah, it was pretty hectic. You know, like people would come in, and I had like half an hour to sit down with them and make a business card or like a pamphlets, you know, like flyers and that kind of stuff.
I guess that experience could help with the deadlines later.
Oh, for sure, like the pressure and stuff. And I saw that news that Ubisoft was gonna open a studio in Brazil, and that moment I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm going there. You know, like this is where I'm going, blah blah blah. And I started. And I saw that they were gonna work on like handheld games, like Nintendo DS games, and specifically for girls.
What?
Yeah, like back in the day, there was this series called Imagine, and it was like they were like games for girls with stuff like wedding designer, you know, like professionals.
That wouldn't go well today, probably.
Yeah, but they were super popular, and they were actually pretty like cool. You know, there was a big public for those games, and they opened the studio. Like, so the first game would be a game like this. So I knew it. So I created a new portfolio, like with that in mind, you know, like I made a new scene where there was like a little bedroom, and it was low poly, so it could fit on a DS. And then I applied for the job, and then I got hired, and we were just like 20 people. Like, it was a really cool time because they got like people from everywhere in Brazil, and they made a really special team. It was a great time. But that's another good tip, you know, like when you
make a portfolio,
make it like directed to the company that you want to work for, you know. So for example, like Blizzard, like our games are stylized, right? Like when you look at Warcraft, Overwatch, and Starcraft, there's a certain style. You know, other companies, they have another style. So if you really want to get a job at a specific company, try to make something that already looks like the kind of games they make.
Yeah, fit in.
Yeah.
Because I actually wanted to ask you a bit about the portfolio tips, but I see we got there anyway. So do you have like any other tips on how to like build your portfolio so that?
Oh, like several.
Oh, okay. Go on.
Okay, I think for me, like because sometimes we look at portfolios at Blizzard to see if we are going to go ahead with an interview or not. And I think for me, what's really important is to show that you can finish projects. You know, it's a big...
Yeah.
It's like when I see a portfolio with a lot of unfinished stuff. Yeah, sketches and unfinished stuff. It's like, it gives me a vibe that the person is still learning, which is good. You know, like you should always make a lot of different projects. But finishing a project, even if it's not perfect, that tells a lot about like your professionalism. You're someone who can organize yourself. You can go to the end. That really tells
work ethic.
Yeah, exactly. Like it shows a lot. That like it shows really well about you. And
so you do some recruitment too, like?
No, it's like because it's only for our like department. Like if you're gonna hire someone to work with us, we want to make sure it's someone who's gonna fit, and
okay, so you have like an input into who.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like feedback, but it's not like I'm choosing people. And then and sometimes it's good to direct your portfolio. If you want to get a job as a environment artist and you have a bunch of characters, it doesn't really help too much. It's like it shows that you can do other stuff. But then I'm thinking like, okay, so yeah, exactly. And if this person is spending so much time like working on characters, like they're not as passionate about environments. And but it's okay to be like a generalist, but usually in the industry, people are hired to do more specific stuff, like an environment artist or a character artist or interface designer. And
especially in the big companies, right?
Yeah.
Maybe indie companies probably hire people with a more...
No, for sure. Yeah. And then it helps. But still, it's good to have one skill that it's your main skill, Like it's cool to know other skills, but at least one skill you should master, like with time. And I think the last tip would be to not overcrowd your portfolio with pictures and different projects. Like just choose the few ones that are, choose the good ones. Like if it's like 3 or 4, that's perfect. You don't really need more than this.
Okay.
Unless they're like high quality and it shows that you worked on like other games before. And
I guess with experience you can build a way bigger portfolio.
Yeah.
But since you did not gain your knowledge from art degree studies, then you probably have some recommendations for some sources where you can learn things on your own, especially now that people are quarantined all over.
Oh yeah, that's a good time, right?
So do you have any like favorite sources of information, of tutorials?
Like these days there's so much content that I think it's hard sometimes to navigate through so much content. It gets confusing. There are so many different tutorials and different techniques. I would say that what really worked well for me and for a lot of people I know is to work on projects, like get together with friends and make a small project, and like be responsible for one part. Let's say you're responsible for all the maps or for all the characters or whatever, because then you can look for specific information.
Okay.
For the challenge you have. Because I think it's good to have a direction, like be directed with your efforts. Because if you're all over the place, like, I follow this tutorial here, I follow another tutorial there, you're going to have a lot of stuff that is disconnected. Yeah,
but you do need some like direction.
No, for sure. And so YouTube has a lot of really good channels. There's a website called Gumroad.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And QBrush. They have a lot of tutorials you can buy. I made a tutorial on how to make an environment from scratch, and I recorded like every single step. So even if you never use a software before, the engine, you can follow because you can see where I'm clicking. And
this is on QBrush or?
Yeah, on both, yeah.
Nice. So that's something to do, certainly.
Yeah. But books, there's some books too, but I think there's a lot of, there's a website called a Polycount for art. They have a wiki with like a lot of really good tutorials and techniques, and I would really recommend like spending some time browsing this website.
I might note it
Polycount.
myself, even Polycount.
Nice.
Great. So now that we're done with this, I'm intrigued. How did you started at Ubisoft, right?
Like I did some freelance before, but like studio job, Ubisoft was the first one.
Oh, so you like did still game design, like, but
So
freelance.
like the way I built up my portfolio was when I started making these Counter-Strike maps. I got in touch with a level design community. You know, there was like one in Brazil. There was a global one called Mapcore, and I saw that people there, they were getting jobs. You know, like they were just hobbyists at first, but then like, oh, this guy in Denmark like got a job. You know, like some other guy in Texas got a job, and I was like, oh shit, so I could get a job too. You know, if I keep doing this, and back in the day we would get together and work on modifications like mods. Nice. You know, like Counter-Strike is a mod for Half-Life. Yeah. So, yeah. And we would make like total conversions. Like I worked on one called Insurgency, that was a realistic, like Iraq war, like simulator, you know, and so that project, like I learned so much work on that project because I was responsible for one of the maps, and then I had to learn how to model, how to texture, how to work on a team. Yeah.
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah. So that's what I was like, going back to what I said before, like about how important it is to make your own projects, you know, like to work with other people, to like get together and try to finish like something, even if it's not perfect. Like the point is just to have fun and make something that you enjoy, like working. Like if you enjoy working, people are gonna like it. So that's what I did for like years, you know, like just getting, like making contacts and like work on these mods. And then when the chance arrived, I was ready for it, you know. It was a preparation.
Nice. But how did you get from Ubisoft to where you are now? Because you are at Blizzard, so...
Yeah.
You made some jumps.
It just happened. I was lucky. So Ubisoft closed the studio in 2010. So we were there for 2 years. And then I was kind of done with leaving Brazil. You know, I wanted to go live somewhere else.
Yeah, explore.
Yeah, you know, like go somewhere else and explore the world and learn like new languages and stuff. And so I prepared another portfolio. Like when I saw that the studio was going down, I started working on an environment at home. I was like, oh, you know, I need to get ready. Like this is not looking too good, so I'm gonna be ready for the worst. And so when it happened, I was like halfway done with this environment. Right. And so then it happened, and I was home, so I just took like a month to like finish this environment. And I wrote a tutorial about this. It's like how to make a modular environment. And somehow this environment was kind of like popular at the time. And one of the recruiters at Blizzard saw it on Polycount, the forum I just talked about.
That's really lucky.
Yeah. And then he messaged me like, hey, like, do you want to, you know, like, would you like to do an art test for Blizzard? And I was like, oh, of course. And then it just, like, it happened from there, you know.
Damn. So I was going to ask you a question whether your first experiences doing studio work were as you hoped they would be, but I hear that you enjoyed them a lot probably, so.
Oh yeah. Like I was very lucky in other places I worked. I loved them, you know, like, and I grew so much and I made so many friends. And yeah, it was like just how I thought it would be in a way. In a lot of ways, it was better.
Paradise. Okay, but another pressing question that people very often have is whether you can actually earn a decent living doing video game art or environment art in your case?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty happy with my life. It really depends on where you are, like depends on your goals. Like if you really want to make money, yeah, there are some companies where you can make a lot of money. But to get to that point, like you need experience. You need the contacts, you need projects, like you need to ship like big like projects, like successful projects.
Yeah.
It really depends. Like some countries, I know the salaries are lower. Some companies, they don't pay too well, but usually what I notice is when a company is paying too much, it's kind of a red flag,
About the work, like
yeah, it's usually those places like people don't stay too long. I noticed, like, it's not a rule, but I noticed like this happened in a few companies. Like people go to the company, and they make some money and then they leave like a year later, like 6 months later.
Like what, probably heavy crunch times or...
Yeah. Or sometimes it's like the company has a lot of money, but they don't know exactly what they're doing. So they're just hiring people.
Randomly for a lot.
Yeah. Like they're just like, oh, like this happens through. But I think it comes down to there's like a lot of things you can do to make more money. Like you can learn about negotiation, for example. Like that's something that I didn't know how to do before. Like I would ask for like a salary raise and I would ask like the wrong way and it doesn't work. But then if you take some time and learn about it, you can get a better result. And also in the company that you work for, you can increase your value in the company. You can do more. You can try to do not more work in terms of volume, but like different kind of work. So, like you can ask like, hey, can I work on this part? Can I get this? Like I think it's about your own value too. Like if you increase your value, it's much easier to get a raise than if you just follow what they tell you. And, like you have to be proactive too.
Yeah, it shows some initiative.
Yeah, exactly. It goes a long way.
I didn't even think about the negotiations because...
Yeah, no one does.
It's soft skills I did not expect.
Yeah, those count so much. Even like, I don't know, like grooming yourself, like, and like, just like looking like presentable, like all that stuff helps, like in the long run.
Yeah, certainly. But going back to the environment art, what does your day as an environment artist actually look like? Like, what is it that you physically do?
Well, okay, I get up and, like I make my breakfast and I take some time before I go to work. I don't like to go right away to work because I need some time to like boot up my brain,
Sure.
And then, I get to work and there's usually a lot of socializing when we arrive, like we are checking out with people, like, oh, what happened? Like how's it going?
How's the children?
And just like, yeah, like how the children, like how's the house and how's the coronavirus, like all that stuff. And usually the morning, like we spend like sometimes we have meetings or, like it's like answering emails and kind of getting prepared. So after lunch, that's when I sit down and I work, like focus work. And, but it mostly consists of, so I make the art. So I take the level design and I have to imagine like what kind of architecture it is. And, so I spend a lot of time modeling or, like making textures in Photoshop or like assembling the map on our editor, because we build the buildings and the pieces in Maya. Okay. But then we bring those pieces into the level editor. That's where you do the placement. It's similar to Unreal or Unity.
But you do your own textures too?
Most of the time, yeah. We have a library of pieces of textures that we can use, like, for example, if I'm making like a stone border, I draw the borders and the details, but then I throw like an overlay on top that has like the stone shape, like the surface variation.
Okay.
So we have some.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, we have a library of stuff that we can pull from, and also we made so many maps before that a lot of times you can reuse stuff too. Like I like to make new stuff because then again it gives a new look. But a lot of times you can reuse, like, let's say, like a plaster wall texture, a more general texture you can totally reuse from other maps.
Recycle a bit.
Yeah, you change it up a little and then it looks different.
Yeah, but when you create like environments, you probably have to work with like concept artists to actually get some inspiration on how you build them.
For sure.
How much input do you have as an environment artist when collaborating with concept artists on that?
So that's something that's amazing in our team, because we have our room is like the word creation room. And so it's us, environment artists, some technical artists, and the concept artists. They sit with us too, the environment concept artists. And like, for example, for this map that I'm working on right now, the guy who's the concept artist, he sits behind me. So we jam like every day, he asks like, oh, so what do you need? I say like, okay, like it could be cool to get a paint over of this area. And then I send him some reference and ideas, and I like, dude, just like do whatever you think is cool, I trust your vision. And then he comes up with something that's awesome. And a lot of times I have to translate, like when I transform it in 3D, like take what's good about it and adjust and stuff. But we work very closely, and he also gives me a lot of feedback on, like I grab him in the morning and like, dude, what do you think about this? And has a really good eye for composition. So it's a teamwork, like this game.
Brainstorm constantly.
Yeah, like Overwatch, it's like we're so close as a team, like everyone gives feedback, and it feels like it's a small team, so we have our hands on a lot of parts of the project.
Nice. Yeah, but you probably need to look out for the gameplay a lot too, because you need to account for, since you're making not an RPG but like a shooter, and the gameplay is like the most important thing.
For sure.
You probably need to build environments to kind of fit the gameplay, so you can work with gameplay designers, or you have some like support that tells you what needs to be on the map and what would help.
That's a really good question. We have the level design team, and they make the basic geometry of the map. The gameplay, the layout, like the flow and like where the doors are, and but it's like very basic. It's just cubes and planes. They don't put details. And then at some point when they sign off, when they're like, okay, like we feel this map is playing well, and then we take over. And like me personally, I always do a lot of small edits, like when I'm working, because when I start work on a new map, I run play tests every day at the office, and it's pretty cool because we can just start a play test and we email everyone and say like, hey guys, join my server. Let's do a quick round here. So I try to do that every day. And then every day I find like small things, like, oh, there's this sight line here that's going to be a problem one day. Or this door could be to the left, or this area is confusing to navigate. And then working with the level designer, I do those edits, But if it's big edits, I ask the level designer to do, because I don't want to change his map too much.
Yeah, sure. Because there's a lot to think about. Because
it is.
Places for camping needs to be toned down,
and especially for a game so competitive like Overwatch,
a lot of scrutiny from the players.
Yeah. If something is wrong, like people get really mad and stuff.
But they don't attack you personally or nothing.
No. But But we have an awesome community, people are very passionate, and it's very awesome when a map comes out and people are like geeking out on like all the small details like we hide, and like all the feedback we get, it feeds the creative process, like that, having that interaction with the fans and getting the feedback. It really feeds our creativity and our passion too, because we're making this game for
enjoys it.
Yeah, like we're making for them, so like if it's a good interaction, especially at BlizzCon, when we have the fans come over and we can have the direct interaction, it's always like so refreshing, and it feels so good, just to feel the love that they have for our games and for our work. It's so special.
You see payoff from all this work.
For sure.
Great. But when you make environments for the games, do you like sometimes inspire yourself with other games that have great environments? Do you have like some favorite games that have a great environments in them?
Oh, for sure. It's a good idea to look at other games, not to copy, but like you can get inspired, or you can like figure out techniques that other games use too. There's always like an easier, like smarter way to do stuff. Yeah, tricks. You can kind of like, I love to break down games, and it's cool. Like now a lot of games, they have this camera mode where you can like navigate around. Yeah, I was playing Innocence, A Plague's Tale.
Oh, great game.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, and they have this camera mode, and it's pretty cool because you can actually go everywhere in the map. So I was going like behind the map, to see like the map from behind, like all the tricks they use, like how they hide the borders, and I actually learned like a lot just like looking behind the scenes.
Sure.
But in terms of environment art, I love Bloodborne. Like I think, like Dark Souls. I think they're so smart with the way they build environments.
Like
they reuse so much stuff, and it doesn't look
reused.
Yeah, reuse it. Like they have like a few statues and they place like hundreds of the same statue, but they arrange them in a way that it doesn't look repetitive, and there's a lot of modular stuff, and it feels immersive. Like for me, an environment is supposed to feel immersive, like when you're playing a game and you forget you're playing the game, then the environment artists did a good job.
Okay, that's a good thought. And just to kind of wrap up a bit, would you recommend, if you're an artist going into the environment art aspect of the game world?
If you love that part, yes. I would always tell people like follow your passion. It's super cliche, but it's true. Like if you enjoy making environments, you enjoy making environments. Like if you don't enjoy making environments, and you're like, oh, I'll try this because it's a career, I don't know if you're gonna be happy. Just follow where your passion is. If you can see yourself working on something like all day, that's a good sign. But if you do like 2 hours and you're like, oh, like I'm done with this, maybe that's not the profession for you. Yeah.
But people probably even quite often change the specialization.
Oh, for sure,
the art department.
Yeah.
So
on games, it doesn't happen as much as it does on other industries, I think. Like animation, I see more of that. Like I have some friends who work on animations, and on some projects they work on characters, and some other projects they're making the environments, and other projects they're doing lighting. But games in general, it's very rare to see someone who's jumping from characters to environments, because it takes a long time to get good at each one.
There's probably a bit more aspects to each of those.
Yeah.
The gameplay element added.
Exactly. It's so different. like to make a character, you need to know anatomy, and to really know anatomy, you have to study a lot of anatomy. Like you have to do a lot of sketches, you have to do a lot of like live drawing, a lot of studies.
Especially since you can actually control the character, so it needs to account for all the things.
Because if anatomy is off just a little bit, it's so off-putting, like it's...
Yeah, especially for the facial artist.
Yeah, it feels off like right away. Like environments you can get away with if it's kind of wrong and stuff. Like it doesn't bother too much. But when a character is like a little bit off, it's
yeah, a face.
Yeah,
it just breaks all the immersion.
Right.
A very stressful thing to make characters. But you said yourself that you want to someday make your own games. So
yes.
You probably need to learn the tricks of the other
for sure
branches for yourself.
So, and characters is definitely my weak point. Like I have a lot of drawings. I know how I want the characters to be, but I'm still like figuring out how to do it, because I kind of want to do them myself for a while, and then at some point like hire someone to make a final version. So it doesn't matter if they're kind of weird. So I'm just using, like in Maya, like Maya comes with a base like model, like a base character model. So I'm just using that guy, and I'm animating because it's like a placeholder.
So you're thinking of like building a team later, or?
I'm not sure. I'm just kind of like having fun with it, and but my plan is like one day to like hire people to do like specific stuff, like the stuff that I can't do. Like the final characters, the final animations, maybe like a final user interface. But I'm trying to keep it simple. So. But it's like always looks simple, but when you start making, it's never simple, right? It's like, it's the classic case of like people, I'm going to start making games. And what's going to be your first game? It's this MMO that has like it's like GTA with like Warcraft and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, like how about you make like Pong first, It starts with like Space Invaders and then you go there.
Yeah, the less you know, the more you expect of yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I was kind of thinking to wrap this up. So, do you maybe have any last advice for aspiring artists on how to get started and get along?
For sure, it's if this is the path you are in, like. I think it's a really cool career. It's super fun. It's very interesting. There's always something cool happening. It's very challenging, like in a good way. You always have creative challenges. And all it takes is just be passionate about what you're doing. Like when you're working on your stuff, like try to get into that zone where you forget about the rest of the world. Like put your cell phone away from you, like try to minimize distractions and try to get into that zone where it's just you and what you're doing. Like imagine like what you're doing as it is a real thing, like somewhere where other people are going to be there, are going to visit.
Because it's true.
Yeah, it is like, and this is a lesson that I hoped I learned like way earlier. That what matters is the immersion. It doesn't matter if like some textures is they're not perfect. It doesn't matter. As long as it doesn't look wrong, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's more about the big picture. That's what matters. The feeling that you give to the player. What's the purpose of what you're making? Like if it's a character, like what's the purpose? What purpose does the character serve in the world? Don't make just stuff that's cool. Like try to think of the reason why the character or that building exists.
Increase immersion.
Yeah.
To serve storytelling or gameplay.
Yeah, it all comes together, right? Like all those elements, they come together for a bigger experience. But the most important is just have fun. You know, like games are, what are games? You know, those are entertainment experiences, right? It's for fun. So if you're not having fun making games, like how can the game be fun? It doesn't work that way.
Okay, that's a fair point, I guess. I think I have been convinced to get into environment art.
Oh yeah, so I did a good job. And one last thing.
Yeah.
This could change in the future, of course, because you know, like we never know the future. But this industry has so many opportunities. You know, it's not hard to get a job in the games industry. Like if you put some work, you make a portfolio, and it really depends on where you live. You know, like in Poland, you guys are so lucky because there are so many studios there. You know, there's like CD Projekt. Yeah. I was looking at a list of studios in Krakow once, and there's quite a few. So you don't have to go far. And or even in Europe, you know, like European Union, you can just go to other countries. And
for now, anyway.
Yeah, for now. Or I mean, like when it comes back in a few months, when they open the borders again. But there's a lot of opportunities, and it's a very inclusive industry. You know, it's a very accepting industry. Like there's all kinds of people from like all over the world, like all kinds of cultures and like orientations and everything, you know, like it's very welcoming. And I really enjoy the sense of community in this industry. You know, like for example, GDC, like the Game Developers Conference, that happens every year. Like the big developers, they go there and they show all their secrets. Like there's so much sharing in this industry, you know, and then those videos, they go to YouTube later for free for anyone. So, actually that's another really good tip and a really good resource. The Game Developers channel, the Game Developers Conference channel on YouTube. So many amazing talks, and there's all kinds of talks on like art, programming, like games industry, you know, like writing. It's the best resource.
Right. It seems like it's just really easy, especially now, to just focus yourself on
for sure
learning for yourself all of the tips.
It's super accessible. Anyone can do it, and it's fun.
Great.
And look, when a tragedy like this happens, the games industry is thriving. You know, like people are playing more games than ever before.
Yeah, that's actually very true. Some people could speculate that it was the game industry that introduced the coronavirus.
Oh, no.
Alternatively, it could be the toilet paper makers.
That's probably more like closer to the truth.
Okay, so I guess we'll be wrapping this up, and thank you very much. It was a
awesome.
pleasure.
Thank you so much, Gregos.
And stay safe, stay healthy.
You guys too. And thank you so much for...
see you after the plague.
Yes, in October, right?
I hope so.
Yes. It will be all good, hopefully.
Okay, so thank you very much.
You guys have a good one. Thank you so much. Bye.